everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today I have with us, he's a director, and he has a new movie out right now. It's called Monster in the Closet. I have with us Neil Watson. Neil, welcome to the Horror Room.
Thank you, Travis. Happy to be here.
Pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. So tell us a little bit about Monster in the Closet.
It's really a funny little concept. It came about from a friend of mine. He was a grip that I worked on a movie set with about 4 years ago, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and we became really good friends. And one day I had finished doing a short film thriller, and I was itching to do another one, and he told me he was a writer, so he sent me a one-page script, which had a really, really fun story about a kid asking his parents to look into the closet because he thought there was a monster in it, and ended up being a complete reverse on the typical, checking for somebody in the closet. So I took it. I thought it was a genius little one page. I was like, oh yeah, we can make this for absolutely nothing probably, which is never really the case. Everything always happens. You've got to still put a little bit of money in. But no, we love doing it. I had a really fantastic actress, Amanda Holken, who I've worked with recently and a couple other stuff. And she came in and just knocked it out of the park. And yeah, it's going through festivals right now.
And it's killing in the festivals right now. I've seen it won many awards.
Yeah, we've gotten we've been nominated for 3 best genre films in different festivals. We just got nominated right now for best microfilm on the Indie X Fest, which is a big festival they do here in Los Angeles through IMDb and a couple other companies that come together. So we'll be screening May 11th on at the Regal Live Arena over in downtown LA, next to the Staples Center. And so they do a full day of screenings, and then after that they do awards. So we're crossing fingers we might get something. You never know.
Yes. Now, as a filmmaker, once you start getting into that festival circuit, is it a little nervous or irritating because you don't know what might happen?
Yeah, it's an interesting festivals are an interesting little beast. You kind of, I always tell everybody it's and only because I've learned this through complete trial and error in every way is you wanna try. There's so many out there now that you really want to look at certain areas and certain ones where it's worth your time to go. There are a lot of online festivals that you can submit to that it's just kind of you're basically just paying to get like a laurel and maybe somebody sees it. I'm in, me and my partner, we're both very much aware this is our 9th short film right now, so we are very much in the business of wanting to make bigger budget films. So we use it more as a calling card. But yeah, we found out that a lot of festivals that we've looked at, we always try to go with a festival that's been at least around longer than 5 years. And they actually do physical screenings. That's one of our main subjects. We want to do physical screenings, and we always like to do festivals where we've actually seen that movies have sold in. That's one of the biggest draws for us. So we do a few internationals where we send it out where we know we have friends that can either participate, or we know where the market is really good, because that's kind of how it is now. The international market is booming. And then we do a few that are around here that we can attend, and we can kind of promote the film and promote ourselves and talk with producers and everybody else what we're doing next.
And I just started a 3-part series on my show about, the indie film festival scams. And like, you do have to be very selective and careful on which one, because there's so many out now. I mean, you look at even between the last 2 or 3 years, like hundreds have just flooded the market, and it's kind of hard to tell who's legit and who's not, because some of them are, like you said, are what's called Laurel Farms.
Yeah, Yeah, that's funny that you say it that way. I've never heard saying the laurel farms, but you are correct. I mean, it is. They are literally farming. It's a very interesting fact. The only online festivals that I've seen that are really good, that you can tell that there's they do well online and they actually promote your film, is something like Alter and Shutter does that. I believe they're markets that are direct to video kind of thing, but they do help you with streaming and they put your films out there for them to see. I'm from a very old school way of, like, I love watching a movie in a theater. I do love the fact that we have the easy way of streaming things and watching on a computer, but I'm a sucker for enjoying a really, really big screen theater movie and event, because it's just, you can't top that. So I always gravitate towards that type of film festival where you can just kind of gather with a group of people, and it's one of the best things when it's that type of festival. It's like we just did a whole weekend over at Mammoth Film Festival, which is one of my favorite beginning of the year festivals. It's almost like going to Sundance, but much smaller, much more compact. And they have about they're small. They've been around for about 6-7 years. They're a small film festival, but they've sold almost every feature film that has come through, which is really, it's a hell of a record to have. So they've got a lot of connections, and their short films, their bracket of short films is really impressive. It's a lot of talent that you can tell. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is because you get to talk and network with a bunch of producers that are there, putting their films, and then you just, the panels are fantastic. So I've done that. And again, there are other ones like Holly Shorts. There's a few, like, I know I used to go to the Florida Film Festival a lot when I lived in Florida, so that's a very good one to actually go around. And I believe there's one in Maryland as well. I want to say either the Annapolis one is pretty tight, I've heard, but I've just never been.
But there's not one that I know of. There's not one in Maryland right now. But I'm working on that. I'm working on that, Neil.
You should.
I'm working on that, man. I'm working on that. But because one thing, what I've heard is when it comes to making short films, the only way to really get a short film out there is going the film festival route. I mean, it's the film festival route is so important when it comes to indie short films.
Yeah, there are other avenues. I mean, I have at least 3 short films right now in different streaming services, but they are indie. They're very independent, very small local ones. There's one streaming service called CubeStream, which I'm a fan of, that I watch films from time to time and everything. They're very good with their percentage towards indie tours. I believe it's like a 60-40 or 70-30, something like that split that they do. So I've put, I have 2 films in that streaming service right now, which is really good. But then again, it's a short film. Short films are never really going to make you money back by any means. And a really, really good short film can vary. I've directed short films that have been from $20,000 to $30,000 budgets, which have gotten massive awards and everything like that. But then that was it. That was the end of it. It was a run of one short. I was lucky enough that I was able to be hired to direct it, and the writer just didn't have anything to push forward with it. But he used it as he had another, I think he had 2 other scripts of 2 other things that he did. So he wanted it as a calling card. So he ended up selling one script after that. But then I've also done Monster in the Closet right now I just started putting it out there, and I've been nominated for a bunch of stuff. I've had about 4 producers literally come up to me and ask me if there's a feature film for it, which there really wasn't. But now I'm in the process of writing one just because of that. Nice. It's they thought that, I had 3 or 4 people directly at me and go, "Hey, if you would write something, I know exactly who would want to invest in something if it's a micro budget or even if it's a small feature, depending on who you can bring into the table." And I said, "Well, let's try it. Let's at least give it a try." So it's the short film. It's a great. The I love the community of it. I love making them whenever it's something that I really, really, truly believe in. It's one of those things that's probably the most fun to do. It's the most collaborative and the most creative way of doing it. Um, Probably one of the last pure ways of doing it without having to throw in a ton of money and try to deal with different producers and investors, because it's kind of your sole proprietary, because the more people you bring in, the more money you're going to spend, and that's kind of not the way short films really deal with. So it's an interesting path. I've been very lucky that the short films that I've directed, I've made money out of, not a lot, but I'm a cinematographer, and I'm a union camera operator, so I've worked on a lot of big shows and stuff like that. So it's that old saying that's tried and true, is you do one for them and then you do one for yourself. So that's kind of how I've stayed in the business, and I don't see anything else that I can do. So that's why I keep doing it.
Now, you were talking about taking a Monster in the Closet and adapted it into a full-length feature.
Mm-hmm.
Is that challenging to do, to take a short film and now expand it to a full-length feature?
It's because I went through, it's basically a page that a friend of mine wrote. So it is very hard. I mean, the Monster in the Closet is from beginning to end. It was one page. And then in order for me to film it, I had to co-write a page and a half on top of it, just so I could get the feeling and the blocking and all that stuff, so I could actually develop it. It's a very confined story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end right off the bat in 4.5 minutes. So to try to reverse that and try to make something bigger, because I didn't have at first a real thought process of how to make it bigger and amplify it. It was very hard at first to try to come up with the concept. I've finally got that worked out. And I think I have a viable kind of story to it, which I'm sure time will tell once I show it to certain investors and if they like it. But it's much easier to have a feature and then come back and film like a small scene from the feature as a kind of a calling card or a short. Just kind of perfect example would be the movie Whiplash. They did a short film which was about, I think, between 17 to 20 minutes. And it was literally a scene frame for frame from the movie Whiplash, from the feature. And they put it in Sundance. Really? Yeah. And then he went to Sundance. They got picked up. And he said that he already had the feature in his hands. So basically producers came and said, "Okay, what do you have?" And he's like, "Well, give me about $5 million and I can make the next, the actual feature film of it." And they did. He got that. So there's a lot of short films that are just basically a scene from a bigger film. With Monster, the problem is that I'm reverse engineering it per se. So it's the story in the short is technically you look for the monster, you try to find the monster comes up in a different place, but then it ends. That's it. Yeah. So it's almost like I had to kind of figure out the origin of how the monster is going to come to be, and obviously it's not going to stay in the closet all the time. So yeah, I had to figure out a couple of little things here and there. So yeah, it's been a fun. I think it's probably one of the most fun processes. And the most like just mind breaking ones to try to figure out something to make that way. Because I can tell you right now, I have another project that I literally because I edit as well. So I just did a picture lock today. And it's a drama. It's a dramedy with a little bit of thriller elements to it. It was really fun. A very very close friend now. She was the one who wrote it and acted in it, and it's a short film. She never had a feature involved. She never had anything. I directed it and produced it for her. Excuse me. I thought the characters were so much fun. It's two women that break out of jail, and on their way to a safe house, their tire pops, and they have to basically trek the desert for days to try to find their way there. And in between that, it's just a matter of situations that they get into and them trying, they're best friends since they were kids. So it's them going through the ups and downs of a friendship on a road trip. So very much, it just had this feel of Thelma and Louise that I thought was really fun to do. And I got the comedy. There was an underlying part of comedy that I guess she had let other people read that they never found it, and I guess I caught on to it. But right now, we just finished a short. We just picture locked it, and we just finished the first draft of a feature, because when we finished filming it in November, I told her I thought the characters were fun and they would be really, really interesting characters to do with a longer form, and she was game, and we just started writing it, and now but that's another one. That's another thing. We don't. The characters are the same as the short film, but the situation is not. So it'll be fun to kind of try to sell that idea.
So I have two questions for you. All right.
Sure.
So the first question: you're an editor and you work on other filmmakers' projects.
Mm-hmm. From time to time, yeah.
From time to time. Now, how important is it for a filmmaker to be opened and open to constructive criticism or advice when it comes to working with an editor?
You mean if like, for instance, if I'm working with an editor, or if I have somebody or
coming to you as an editor? Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things. So it's really interesting. So as an indie director and indie editor, there's a little more collaboration per se. It also depends. I mean, everybody's different. That's I got to start it that way better. Everybody's completely different. So we're human beings. Everybody, if you're working, like, for example, if I'm working on someone else's project, if I'm only editing, then there's going to be a massive difference of the way I treat the project, as opposed to if I had already started, like this last one where I actually directed it and co-produced it and then did the editing. So if I'm a single editor, I've always said that editing is really where your movie gets fully finished. It starts on the script, then you film it, and then once you film it, you put it together, and whatever comes on the edit is really truly never what's on the page, or at least not fully when you start out. The reason being is because, unless somebody is truly writing for the screen, somebody like Christopher Nolan, somebody where you can actually literally read the script and go, yep, that's the movie, a lot of stuff gets moved around. So for me personally, I always take, there's a hierarchy for filmmaking. So if I'm just an editor on something, I will, the majority of the time, what I do is whenever I talk to a director, whoever the filmmaker is, I'll let them know to give me, I need at least the first 2 weeks so I can put everything together, all the footage, and I'll take the script and I will mold it to basically what the script is. And then after those 2 weeks, I'll have the director come in, and then we'll sit through and we'll actually sift through everything and stuff like that. Majority of the time, that's pretty much the easier way for me personally. There's a lot of people work in different ways. I have an editor friend of mine who's a union editor who's done a lot of big shows and a lot of big stuff, reality and scripted. And he works in a completely different fact. I mean, he basically comes in, and in a week he's got a cut, and then he gives you about 3 passes of notes, and then that's it. So it just depends.
Wow.
For narrative, I think for indie, I like to give time to the creator, or whoever the filmmaker is. If I'm only doing editing, I like to give them a certain amount of leeway to find certain voice if they don't find it. Um, I will always give my opinion on a story from my knowledge. But if that person isn't susceptible to it and they want to go their route, there's nothing I can do when it comes to that. I mean, I'm kind of a paid worker at that time. Now, mind you, if I'm directing something and I have an editor, which happens in certain cases. I mean, sometimes I've gotten scripts that I've not written. So it's more up to the producer, whoever the writer is, and they usually have a friend or somebody who's going to edit it. At that point, I shoot, I actually film the movie in my head and I edit it while I'm filming. That's kind of how I work.
Wow.
So I'll film, and at the end of every day, I will take all the footage, and for about another hour or two after we finish filming, I'll clip everything visually so that I know without dialogue, because I don't really need it. So I clip everything in my frames so that I can make sure visually I have exactly what I need. And then the next day I know if I have to reshoot something or not. But that's just my personal, yeah. It's really funny. I'm a massive fan of like Kevin Smith, and he literally does his movies just like that. He'll sit down for an hour or two after making a movie, and he'll just after every day of filming, he'll cut the scene, and he'll if he has it or not. And I thought that was, when I heard about that, I was like, yeah, that makes complete sense to me.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, I talked to indie authors, and indie author book editors, and some of them said like, oh my goodness, it's a pain in the ass working with some authors because, they hire you to be editor and then you tell them, hey, this is not flowing well, or you might want to do this and that. And they like, no, this is the way I want it. And
that's a big thing. That's why I kind of, like I said, I give my notes. I try to I explain myself as much as I possibly can when it comes to the cut. And I always tell people, one of the biggest things that for me, I guess personally has helped me is, depending on the frame that I have in order to edit or something, I'll always tell the filmmaker, it's like, look, watch the entirety of it. Because one of the biggest things about cutting and editing is like you're not doing it to any music. You're not seeing, unless you're seeing the full picture. And that's one of the things that other directors might have that already in their head, and I'm not seeing it. So that's why I kind of always go, look, I'm seeing what I'm seeing in front of me, and this is it. And I also, one of the biggest things that I also ask beforehand is what's the most important thing? Who's the most important character? What's your theme, and what do you want to convey? Which is the question that I literally ask. I ask even when I'm a cinematographer on a film. That's one of my first questions to the director is what do you want to convey for the story in general? And then I come in scene by scene and I'll ask, what do we want to convey here? What do we want? What's your emotional thing? Because that informs how I shoot it, how I light it, all that stuff. So for editing is kind of the same way. I think I mean, editors will probably say differently, but that's the only way that I figured out my style of editing is I try to sit there and figure out what I need to convey through the scene and what makes me feel a certain type of emotion. But again, like you said, there are filmmakers, there are auteurs that have already this completely different feeling, and they don't want that. So you as an editor, you're being paid to edit. If you're being paid to edit, then it's an to me, it's employment. You give in your thoughts and everything like that, but at the end of the day, you don't have the final say. Now, if it's something where it's with your friends and stuff like that, then yeah, I mean, you can try to fight it out, but at the end of the day, is it worth getting into that argument?
But I mean, as an editor, would you be like worried that like if somebody put something out there and it wasn't good, and then people are like, well, who the fuck was the editor? And they were like, oh, it was I hired this guy named Neil Watson, and like I mean, wouldn't you be worried about that?
I do. There's certain things, but here's the fun part about indie market is I'm a firm believer, and I've done this before. I'm a firm believer that if I really don't feel like like the story's being put out like that, and it's to my appreciation, to my liking, it's something that I don't feel is good, even though I know I did a good job. I was really more doing it. It comes out because it's not what I did, because I was being told to do it a certain way. There's times where I've literally taken my name off the credit. I'll put a pseudo name on.
Wow.
Yeah, it's only happened to me 3 times in my career where I've actually done a pseudo name, and I'm happy I did it. I still got paid for the job, so that was no problem. But I felt that the story, and I felt the edit and everything was just dragging. There was no point in it. I felt like the theme and the tone was being taken away, and ever since then, I said, yeah, I don't think this is going to be good. And I just, when I was asked about my credit and everything, I said, no, you know what? I have a pseudo name that I put. I didn't say exactly why. I just said, look, there's I'd rather have my credit name be this on the film, and we just leave it at that. So it's. At the end of the day, it's everyone's individual choice. I mean, we work in a collaborative effort and everything, and I think it's about staying true to your own self and what you really truly love. And like you said, if it's a job that you do and you know for a fact it's not good, and even though you tried your best and did everything you could, and then they came in, because the other thing too that you had to think about is, I can edit a film and then I give it up after my time as editor, after the time my contract states as an editor or as a filmmaker. Like, there's times where I have actually been cinematographer for a film, and I was there for 3/4 of it. And then they did reshoots, and it was not because of scheduling or whatever. I couldn't do it. So, those things, I then come around and look at it. I make sure that I have total, like, certain say in it. But if I don't have the say in it and I see it, and I don't like it, then I've got to make a choice,
Because I mean, in this industry, I mean, actually in any industry, your name is what follows you, and your work is what follows you. And your work is attached to your name. So, like, you just got to be careful, you know what I mean? And I just wanted to ask you that question, because I've always wondered that, like, as an editor, if you're working with, I mean, I'm not saying all filmmakers, I met some, majority of filmmakers I may are nice, but I'm pretty sure there are some that are hard to work with, and they see their work as their masterpiece, and they don't, even though they're hiring an editor, they don't want the editor to edit it, if that makes any sense. And
well, they want the editor. They want to be over the shoulder of an editor, and they want that person to click to, and here's the thing. I say that with a smile on my face, because I was that person for a while.
Really?
There's a certain practice. I mean, I respect all editors, especially the ones that can think literally in 2 seconds, know exactly where they're going when they see the image. To me, it took longer, because I come from the visual, like, camera and directing background more than anything. So I didn't start as an editor. I even don't call myself an editor. I just call myself an editor in pretty much my stuff. Even if I've worked in a couple other editing jobs, it's not the job that I take all the time. But it's one of those things where it's like, for a long time when I wasn't editing anything, my brain just didn't accept how slow I was to try to clip things together. And so you need somebody who's quick, who if you say it out, you want to say it out loud and it happened. I mean, we are human beings. We want that instant gratification in everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself figuring out over the years that I was just being a pain in the ass on a lot of people. And because I had a lot of editor friends that I've worked with, none of them hate me, thank God. I mean, I've made my peace with the ones that I was kind of a little too harsh on. But most of the time it's like, they're like, yeah, dude, let me do my job and let me do this. And, you got to take a moment from where you think to where I can do. You got to take a moment. And as I realized that, as I kept practicing editing and I kept coming back and doing my stuff, I was like, you know what? There's a certain level of like, I gotta hand it to them. It's they're beasts, and I'm just, I'm still here along for the ride. But it's made me a better filmmaker because I also know everyone's position. I know for a fact I can do a lot of the things on set, but why would I want to do that when I can, hire the best people around to actually do that? And that's really all you do, is you hire the best people around you, and then and you recognize the fact that they are talented, and they're probably more than likely more talented than you to actually do it. And that's the whole point of collaborating. But yeah, editing is not fun. Sometimes it just really isn't fun.
It's not even editing. I mean, even editing what I edit my YouTube interviews, and like, it's not fun. It's time consuming. This is the fun part. The editing. See, most people don't know. I spend about an hour, half an hour to an hour after this interview, editing this video, and it's time consuming. So yeah.
Oh, I feel you. I feel you completely. And the thing is that you only have so many choices you can make. So I bet you even through the interview, you're thinking, it's like, okay, where do I want to word this, or where do I want to go? Because you're already cutting it in your head in a sense. So, that's how you come up with the questions and stuff. You're already cutting something in your head. But yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you fully. Like I said, I just finished picture locking this film that we finished like right at the beginning of December, and I now have it picture locked only because I probably could have done it about 2 weeks ago, but I had prior commitments. But yeah, it was, it's one of those. It was really funny. It's a movie. I don't like short films that are over 20 minutes anymore. I think if you're going over 20 minutes, you might as well just commit and do a feature. There's no point in going any farther than that, unless the story is amazing and you've got me from the beginning. I think short films, 15 minutes to, I don't know, maybe 18 minutes should be that cutoff point. Because if you can't give me a theme or a story in that point, that's it. So imagine trying to cut. Our last film was it was 18 pages, but we added a scene within the shooting schedule that we got very lucky to do, and so it became 25 minutes on the first cut. And so every week I have been just shaving a minute off or 2 minutes off. So we finally got it down to 18 minutes, and now I'm happy. But it takes a while.
So no, I don't know if it's because I'm 41 now, right? And I don't know if it's because I'm in the 40s or what. But or I don't know if it's because we're in the YouTube short TikTok phase or short film phase. But and I've heard a lot of people say this, and the whole criticism right now in the movie industry is that movies are too long, that movies should not be over 90 minutes. And
that's a whole trend right now.
It's the fucking trend right now, and people are saying, and I kind of agree. I mean, it's tough for me to sit through a 2 hour, 2.5, 3 hour movie anymore. I can't do it.
Yeah, it's a hard ask. It's really funny. I find it a harder ask to do that at home. I mean, even at home you can pause it or whatever, but when I'm at home and I watch TV, I don't know about you, but I want to lay on the couch and just relax. And I usually, if I got something that doesn't grab my attention, I usually will doze off or something, and then I'll be like, oh shit, where did I left off? So I agree. There's a small place in my heart where it's like if it's something epic, if it's something that deserves my attention for 2 hours and 45 minutes or 3 hours, it has to be of an incredible scope. I think something like what Dune was, and like Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon. Those are the only ones that I can put in that category where I was like, okay, I can watch this. I was sitting in the theater. I got out of my chair. I still talked about the film, and I felt okay. That didn't feel like 3 hours. I was entertained throughout. Killers of the Flower Moon is the one that really did that for me. I mean, Dune 2 wasn't 3 hours. Thankfully, it was like 2.5. But Dune 2 was phenomenal in every way. It was the remake that was definitely needed from what the first Dune was. But I agree fully with the trend. Like an hour and a half, man. Like movies in the 80s and the 70s, it was an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes, and you got an entire full story with action, with exposition, with everything, and they were well told. I think I don't know. I mean, I love cinema. I cannot. I can tell you straight up, I don't ever think there's a bad movie out there. And the reason I say that, and I get a lot of flack from friends of mine because they always ask me, it's like, why can't you critique a movie and say it's a bad movie? It's like, I can't, because that's someone else's art, and I have no say. I don't have any say. And whoever thinks they do is lying to themselves. My opinion is my opinion, but if somebody had the freaking balls and the persistence and all of that to get a movie out there, to get it made, just getting a fucking movie made is an art form in itself. But to put it out there, you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears out there, and then you're getting crushed and being told that it's a piece of shit. That I disagree fully. There are movies out there that, as a whole, story wise, you go, wait, what happened? But one of the things that I always like to do is I always like to watch the film, and there's always something about the film that's going to give me an emotional response. No matter what movie I've seen, even if the movie in its entirety, I go, well, it wasn't my cup of tea. But the fun part is watching a film and watching how whoever the filmmaker was, how they got these moments in there that actually made me feel a certain way. And I take those, and those are the ones that I kind of keep with myself, and then I maybe homage them later on or emulate them or something like that. I mean, those are I guess one of my perfect examples for that. There's two, actually. Monster in the Closet. I'm a massive Wes Craven fan. Loved Wes Craven. Loved every minute of Wes Craven. I loved all his stuff that wasn't even Nightmare on Elm Street. I loved Shocker. I was a massive fan of People Under the Stairs. Was one of my favorite films.
Fucking love it. Yeah, man. Fucking love it.
And so when I did Monster in the Closet, and I'll give kind of a spoiler, is we don't have a walk-in closet in my little 2-bedroom duplex that I live in. We have like a tiny little hallway that goes from our rooms to the kitchen. And my production designer and I kept thinking, like, I kept asking, I was like, look, I'm not gonna rent out a house in LA for like $7,000-8,000 for one day of shooting. It just makes sense. How can we make this actually work? And credit to him, man. He came over, he saw our rooms, he saw the little hallway, and he's like, yeah, let's just put a couple of C-stands here, let's put racks of clothes here in this little hallway. We open the bathroom door, we hang some stuff over, it looks like you've got clothes. Trust me, it'll look like a walk-in closet. And he saw it before I did, and it was great. When he dressed it up on the night of, I was like, oh wow. So it was really funny because as soon as he dressed it, my thought went to the actual in between the walls on People Under the Stairs when they walk through, because it's long but it's tight. And I shot it exactly how that movie was. Like
Nice.
I took 3 shots. I took 3 specific shots from people under the stairs that I really really enjoyed, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make these kind of the angles of the shots, and it worked perfectly. So another example is I watched. I'm a huge fan of cinematographer of Lubeski, Chivo, and he shot The Revenant with DiCaprio, and he was always on a wide lens. And I had this last film that I just finished. I ended up shooting it, more than half of it shooting it myself. And there's a lot of that film, The Revenant. There's a lot of positioning, and it's because it's 2 friends and they go through hell and back in the desert and dehydrated. They have no water. They get injured trying to get cactus juice. It's a whole thing. So I made it a point to just have the camera be another character that's following them, so that the audience can follow with. And the only way I could do that was by filming just completely open with a wide lens to show the vastness of the desert behind them, but then to be right there with them and closed in. So it's, yeah, I love finding these little emotional nuggets that then I can transfer and tell my story with. So that's my biggest thing.
So that's amazing. Now I'm gonna tell you right now, there was 2 movies recently that I love the theater. Fuck, I mean, I'm not saying fuck streaming, but I'm not. I prefer the theater over the streaming. I don't watch movies at home. I like the theater experience. Even in I go to the, in the theater. It's just something different about the experience. But there was 2 movies that were great movies. I mean, great movies that I saw in the theaters within the last year, or maybe last year, I would say, that like were excellent movies. But I was like, boy, and I fell asleep for like a good 20 minutes for enduring both of these. And I was like, boy, these movies should have been a half an hour shorter. And one was John Wick 4. John Wick 4 was it was so amazing, but it was 3 hours fucking long. I was like,
and he fell down those stairs like 3 times, for fuck's sakes. Like, just,
yes, I was like, whoa, this could have been like, there was so much padding on that movie. I'm like, this could have definitely been a half an hour, 45 minutes less, easily. And the other one too, and this is I don't want Terrifier 2. Terrifier 2 could have definitely been a good 40 minutes. They could have, I mean, that was 2.5 hours long. 40 minutes of that movie could have been cut out.
Yeah.
It was just too long. I mean, they were great movies, but it was just like, why?
Yeah. I think more than anything, it's because a lot of these movies, and shit. I'll give it up. I mean, I know some of the guys from the John Wick films, and these guys are just, because I've worked with them. I did a short film called Ellie, which was an action film, and we filmed it a few years back. We just got there's actually a feature that got sold because of it, and we're still waiting to see when we get greenlit, if we get greenlit. But all the stunt crew from that was a lot of the second unit stunt crew for John Wick. So I got to meet the stunt director, who was the director of the film, and I can tell you, those guys live for creating these elaborate stunts. And when you have such a big movie and such a massive fandom, it's the pressure of making it much more big, like just way bigger than the one before it. He says that they truly feel it on set. Like it's just a matter of it becomes a thing where it's like, yeah, the story's there and they continue to keep it simple, but then it's about all the action around it. So that's the only thing that I can think of, because I do agree with you. John Wick they could have shaved off a good 30 minutes, and that movie would still have the same tone, the same heart, the same punch that every freaking John Wick movie has. That's all they needed. But sometimes that's the way to go. Yeah, it's really interesting. I agree with you. I mean, even in festivals right now, there's been the last festival I was in, I saw 2 feature films, both dramatic films. Uh, one of them, I know the producer because he's a good friend of mine and he lives in Texas. And I talked to him, and he said he basically was the one who told me, it's like I would have shaved 25 minutes off the film. And when he said that to me, I was like, look, I bet you I know where you would shave it off. And he's like, yeah, go ahead and tell me. And I told him, I was like, you probably could have shaved off half of the second act. And then you could have just as easily packed in all these new characters that you put in the second act so that in the third act they wouldn't get lost. And he was like, that's pretty much what I told the director. You're correct. But the director was also the writer, and he was the executive producer. So he had final say, and the movie came out because of the way it did because of that. It won a bunch of awards, and it was very well acted. I know a bunch of the actors and really really great stuff. But yeah, I mean but again that's kind of the opinion of the viewer, because art is that way. Art is subjective. Art is whatever you put out there. It's never going to get you're going to have it's very interesting. Popular opinion, where everyone likes something, is very, very, very picky. When you look at perfect example, you look at directors, amazing directors like Steven Spielberg. Spielberg has hit or miss films. It's impressive, and he's got a library of them. But then you look at a director like James Cameron, who's never had a flop. I mean, it's every film he's done. Yes, he's gotten hate for Avatar up the ass, but it's still the two biggest fucking movies.
Yeah.
It means that there's a massive following, and there's a massive popular opinion that that's the type of entertainment and filmmaking that people gravitate towards and have multiple viewings. So it's weird. A lot of it's just weird. I feel like it's really about making your own art. Yeah, if you wanna live and make money out of your art, I think you still have to be aware of what the world is, the way the world moves, the way viewership is. I don't think there's a director or a filmmaker of any kind out there that doesn't look into the world and research it from time to time to see hey, what avenue can I take in this world where my film can maybe progress or succeed or something like that? Because at the end of the day, it's art is we all want to, at least me personally, I would love for my art to be able to support myself with it. That's the true life. So, but yeah, I mean, God knows, man, my first couple short films, if you watch them, holy crap. Oh my God, I should have shaved about 15 minutes out of both of them. It's, I did a film noir as my very first film because it was a dedication to my grandfather, and it's the type of movies that we watched since I was a kid. I mean, he was a major influence in my life, and I did this whole. It was a combination of a dedication for my grandfather, and I had just ended a really, really crazy 4 month relationship that broke me for some reason. So I just put it all to paper. I think I was like a month or two before finishing film school, and I pitched it as a thesis. It didn't pick, but I said, fuck. I was like, I'm going to make this. I don't care how. I'm going to try to I did crowdfunding, raised a few $1,000s. I got two teachers that were like the script that were like, oh, if this is what I think it is, I'll build you a set. And so it was great. I went through it. In the process of filming, the director of photography and I almost got into a fist fight the second night because he was very unhappy of the camera that I rented for the production, and I was just looking at him like, okay, well then find yourself a camera and get the money, and you're more than happy to bring it. But until you do that, we're using the equipment that I paid for. So it was a lot of interesting things. And then when I went to edit it, because I thought it was my baby, I went and I did it. I went through so much trial and error. I made the composer rewrite the entire score after like 2 weeks of working on one. I edited it, and I think I could have shaved easily 5 minutes off of it. Didn't do it. So yeah, it's but man, those are the mistakes everyone should make. Everyone needs to make them in order to do it. It's you find a lot about yourself, and you find out if you can actually do it. That's I think one of the biggest things. But yeah, if you're at the level of making John Wick, oh well, make it in 40 more minutes.
I mean, people still went to see that movie. It broke box office records. I just listen. I mean, maybe it's me. I'm a old man at this point, but I was like, fuck. He fell down the stairs like you said, like 20 fucking times.
Yeah, he went down those steps a lot.
And I was just like, oh my goodness! Like, I actually did a review for that movie after I seen it on my channel, mm-hmm. and I was like, this is almost a perfect fucking movie. But it was too much action. You know what I mean? I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it was too much action.
Yeah. When does it become a fantasy action flick? Like where that's like there's a line. I feel like there's a line because at that point you're like, no true human being can go through that and come back. But hey, I mean, but then again, you're 41, so we come from a time where horror movies and action films were an hour and a half direct to the point, and they are so good. And they are so good. Yes. I was even movies that were made in that time that sucked sometimes. That should have never been made still got made. It was such a I think between the 70s, 80s, and 90s it was just a golden time for just that type of craziness. I'm out here in LA, and I work on certain sets, and I work with a lot of the older people that have been working for 30, 40 years, and I've had stories where I've sat down with a bunch of people, and they start telling me about what the 80s was in Hollywood, and man, it is incredible to listen to these stories. Just the things that got made that you would think that just should have never been able to. It's one of those things where it's like, God, I mean, yeah, I was watching a movie that I'm a massive fan of because of who it was. I mean, it was Stan Winston who directed it, but Pumpkinhead to me was such a great film. But then you look at it now, and it's still such a B movie, the way it's shot and the way it's mm-hmm. There's certain technical sides of it that you're like, oof, they could have done so much better on this. But then you see what Stan Winston was. Stan Winston was a creature creator, and you get every scene that Pumpkinhead the monster is in. You're kind of like, yeah, this is sick. This is exactly what the movie should be. It's incredible. It's I don't know. There's a thing about filmmaking these days, and I'm sure I mean, between like instant gratification with TikTok and all that stuff, but then there's mm-hmm. this like, I don't know, grandeur. Like I've got to spread everything, or I got to like overextend something. I don't know. Everybody has their own way.
But you do a movie like Oppenheimer, or a big like Marvel movie, or like Dune 2. Okay, 2.5, 3 hours, you get it, right? Because you gotta tell this whole entire fucking story. But there's no reason a slasher should be over 2 hours. I'm sorry. Oops.
Agreed.
A slasher should not even be be close to 2 hours. Slashers, 84 minutes, 82 minutes. That's what slashers have always been. Keep it in that realm where it's not too much. Action movies, same thing. Action movies should not be 3 hours long. No one wants to see it's too much. It's overkill at that point.
Even comedies, man. Like there's been it's funny. I love comedies, I really loved the Judd Apatow comedies. But once he started hitting 2.5 hours on a comedy, and it was like a drama, I was like, hold on, this isn't working. Like, it's like by the time you get to the best jokes, I'm completely gone. I mean, it was funny
Check
for
it out.
me. Yeah, for me, the perfect comedies were. It's always been like Blues Brothers is still one of my favorite of all time. I literally watched that the other day. But in like the early 2000s, I think Hangover was by far
It was great.
Hangovers and Bridesmaids. I think those were the two in both like different genres that just took everything about comedy. And I was like, those are people that are really like having fun, but
Yeah.
they weren't. I don't know. Hangover was what, maybe 2 hours or just at the cusp of 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think because it had its dramatic stuff and everything, but man, that was well paced. There's only a few. There's literally very very few that can actually make it. But yeah, I agree with you. Slashers. Come on, man.
And
We know where
action
this is
movies.
going.
I know.
You know somebody's gonna die. You know somebody's gonna get slashed. Let's just you don't have to overdo it.
But Terrifier 2, I can tell you exact. Well, John Wick already told you the whole fucking stare thing. You could nip that out. That would have knocked out a half an hour right there, and then perfect movie. Terrifier 2, the weird. I don't know if you saw Terrifier 2, but the weird clown playing the guitar and the kids show thing that lasted. It was a fucking good 35 fucking minutes on that, and it went completely nowhere. I'm like, well, where's this going? This tiny or something? It went completely nowhere. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that had to be complete filler. You know what I mean? That had to be complete filler because it didn't take the story anywhere. It was just like a fucking fever dream or something. I'm like, well, why was that in the movie?
Yeah, and sometimes that's pretty much. I mean, you hit it. You're right in the head. Sometimes it's just filler. Like there, you're just looking for something, and then you figure out, okay, that's it. Sometimes it's a producer that goes, no, we should have this and this and this. But that producer's basically going, if you don't put this in here, I'm not paying for my half of the movie. What are you supposed to do? You got to put it in. I mean, at that point, like
Made
I
no
did
sense.
it was really funny. I did a film a couple of years back. It's not out yet. I think they're almost done with it. But it was an indie film. It was with John Cusack as one of the main guys. Really really cool dude. But we had a scene where we had to film. I was second camera, so I was doing the gimbal for them. So I was doing a lot of the walking and tracking shots. And we get to a location. I believe it was kind of a working train station, but we were on the side that wasn't working, and we only had, I don't know what the time limit was. We were limited amount of time. We weren't there for the full day. We just had a half a day, and they already had about 5 or 6 shots that we had to do. I only had 2, and I came in and I did my 2. Then they did one other one, and then I guess they had all the producers were there that day, and one of them was there with his wife and kid, and they decided that they wanted their wife and kid on the scene.
Uh,
So, like last minute, we end up creating this intro shot because of the wife and the kid. We ended up creating this intro shot where I have to pass through camera, and the kid basically calls out. It's so cheesy, but it's like the kid grabs his mom's like, "Mom, look out the window. The cows are." I don't know what the fuck ever. Of course, there's no cows out there. It's a whole green screen, and everything looks green. But um, I think we did that. We did that. I did like 5 or 6 passes inside of this train, and the kid never hit the mark. I hit my mark on camera every time. The actors hit the mark. It was really funny to watch because the kid just either looked at the camera, or he, like, as he's telling his mom, he's looking directly at the lens, or it was really one of the things. But you know what? But the fun, but the and it ended up being, I want to say from one of the edits that I saw, it's not there in the cut, but they humored the producer, I guess, and all he wanted was just to kind of get humored and have his kid on it, even if it doesn't make it in the film. But at least he's got that memory, I guess.
Yeah.
But man, I've trust me, I've seen so many things where it's like the scene doesn't make sense. They put in somebody's kid, and it makes absolutely no sense. And we're there for half a day just to make that work.
But that's what I was thinking while I was in Terrifier 2. I was like, who's the lady with the clown makeup and the guitar? I'm like, whose wife, girlfriend, side chick, whatever?
Yeah.
Who is that? Because this whole thing doesn't add to the story at all. I'm like, this is fucking bonkers.
Yeah, it doesn't give anything.
It doesn't give anything. I'm thinking like, okay, well, maybe this is going to add something to Art the Clown's life. Maybe he was a kid's. No, nothing. Yeah. It was completely pointless. 40 minutes wasted on that.
Yeah.
That's my only criticism of Terrifier 2.
Well-grounded, and a well-grounded criticism it is, because, yeah, you're right. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Completely pointless. Completely pointless. I don't care if anybody says they like Terrifier 2. You have to agree with me. That whole portion was completely pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if it doesn't add to a story, to a movement, like, then why put it in? But again, filmmaking is subjective. It's like it could have been that the director loved that scene so much, and he's like, no, and they just made it a point to tell themselves the story of why that scene is there and why it moves it along, and the hidden symbolic meaning of that scene towards the end. Dude, we do that to ourselves all the time. We're all creatives. We're crazy.
And who knows, it might carry over to Terrifier 3. Maybe that's the case, but at the same time, for the viewer, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it'd be really funny if Terrifier 3 comes out and that's how they open the movie, just for you.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna be like, wow, okay, yeah. It's like, that's how
Art the Clown. That's how Art the Clown. That's who Art the Clown. He was just on a children's show. Makes sense. Okay. I see why they put that in part 2, but it still made no fucking sense. But
exactly. But you never know. They might come out and just be like, we know Travis is not happy. Let's make this happen for him.
I don't think they give two shits what I'm fucking saying. But
you never know, man.
I should. I mean, Art the Clown actually shared one of my videos. So I mean, the guy playing Art the Clown. So apparently they were watching me a little bit. So
there you go.
Neil, where can everyone find you, my friend?
Say what? I'm sorry?
Where can everyone find you?
I am on, So I'm on Instagram, on Neil Watson Director. And my company page, our company is called Film Dreams Inc., which is also on Instagram and on TikTok, at Film Dreams Inc. And yeah, I'm mostly on there, of Facebook and everything. I can't do X because I just can't do it. I don't. It's just a platform that I just don't want to be in at all. But we do have on YouTube as well, Film Dreams Inc. We have our production. It's as we're building our website for a lot of the productions that we do. But on YouTube, it has almost all of the films up to now. Monster in the Closet is not in there yet because we haven't premiered it, but we do have I have a little slasher there. If you ever get a chance to watch, it's called Morning Fresh. We got a couple of awards. Something, again, just taking a page out of Scorsese's first short film, because I'm a massive fan. And we did this little bit, and we had two actresses that were really gung-ho about the idea that my partner and I came up, because we were literally sitting down on the couch completely dead because we had just finished a production that was an overnight, and I think it was like we had gotten home at 4:30 in the morning, and we decided to, in true California hospitality, we decided to pack a bowl and smoke and try to relax and be able to go to sleep. And the last thing we did was, we stayed up for about an hour. We came up with we started brushing our teeth with our electric toothbrush, and we looked at each other. We're like, this is the most annoying goddamn thing we've ever done while we're high. And out of that, a 3-minute short came out, and I don't know, people liked it. So,
boom!
I know it's serendipitous thing. So yeah, if you or your viewers ever go into YouTube at Film Dreams Inc. And look it up, it's called Morning Fresh, and it's pretty hilarious. I get a lot of responses from people like, "You guys have a sick mind."
Well, listen, guys, in the description box, it is the link to Neil's YouTube. Definitely check it out. And also hit that like and subscribe button, because that helps everybody who has a YouTube channel. So
definitely.
Neil, this was a fun fucking interview, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I had a blast, Travis. It was great.
Yes, thank you. Listen, you're more than welcome to come back or anytime, man. More than welcome.
I'd love to, man. Anytime as soon as I get this next film out, I don't know, you might like it. Maybe your viewers will like it. I'll send it your way to check it out. And yeah, once Monster Closet goes through some stuff, I'll send you a link so you can watch it.
Awesome. As long as it's not 3 hours long, I'm good, man. I'm pretty sure.
Nah, man, 4 minutes. It's just enough time to brush your teeth, sit for a minute, watch it, and get out and go to bed.
I'm old, Neil. I'm old. I can't do long movies in the order.
I got you, man. I'll make them just for you. Just lace it short to the point.
I appreciate it, brother. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you next time. Take care.